Dear learners, today we are going to discuss on the dissertation writing. So far we have seen the research process and the techniques that you used in quantitative and qualitative research. We have also seen the journals and improving your writing skills in the last module. In this module, I will exclusively go with the thesis writing process. Let us start. PhD thesis or a dissertation at a master's level, even an undergraduate level, carries a lot of weightage. It symbolizes the hard work and effort of that student. And the outcomes that you got in your work, that is carrying in a couple of pages binded in the form of a thesis. What are the key points that you have to check while you are preparing your thesis, and what kind of difficulties you may come across? This is what we are going to cover in this module. A PhD thesis reflects the understanding of the candidate of a particular area. A PhD or even a master dissertation topic, a candidate may have a particular interest on a research area. That is why they have chosen that topic. So a dissertation or a PhD thesis that reflect the understanding and interest of the researcher in that area. The second point is, whatever latest information compiled by the researcher is presented in the thesis. So it is also a very useful and quality content that you will be getting from a PhD thesis or a master level dissertation. For undergraduate students, the project will show your creative skills and how you presented novel ideas. What interventions that you made in terms of collecting the data or compiling the evidences and presenting the fact. It explains the interventions of the researcher. The most important part is the outcome. Every research brings some new fact. So the researcher's effort, the life, is reflected in the outcomes. So people are also interested to hear the outcome of the research rather than the process or rather than the introductory part. The contribution of the researcher in terms of academic as well as social implications which we can use. So the implications of the research which will be coming as a recommendations of the work, that also carries lot of weightage. So a PhD dissertation is very, very important part of any individual's life, and for any institution it is an asset. From enrollment till you complete, you may come across lot of problems. As a scholar, you may come across lot of confusions, managing time, and are always confused with the topics or the direction of your work, whether it is going in the right direction or not. So you have to manage all these things during the period of your work. The following points give you an idea about the essential qualities that you have to maintain while you complete your PhD. From commitment to perseverance or maintaining positive attitude and the spirit of adventure. The 3 to 4 years of valuable time of an individual is spent for PhD. So it is important that you should keep all the qualities and make your work valuable and recommendable for others. The structure of a PhD thesis. In this part, we will see the structure of a PhD thesis. The first chapter normally deals with introduction. Introduction, it covers the topic in a broad manner. Whatever is happening in that area, that particular subject or discipline, or the existing conditions, contemporary researchers, these all we can mention in the beginning part of this chapter. While you proceed, you will identify the research problem. From research problem, you can formulate the research questions and research objectives. And if required, If your study is going to be a quantitative study, you can also formulate the hypothesis. Then you will present the delimitations. While going through the introduction of a PhD thesis, the reader will get an understanding of the area dealt by the researcher. So the triangle indicates the focus of a researcher from a broad area to narrowing down the precise research problem. The chapter 2 deals with review of literature. In quantitative researches, it is important to present how you identified the variables, the theory that you used, and the description of independent variable and dependent variables, the measurement items. So this chapter is very important because it gives you a background of your work. The existing studies are detailed in review of literature, and you will be identifying the research gap from here. Chapter 3 deals with methodology, the research philosophy and the methods that you used in your research, and the specific design of your work, research design, is given in detail in chapter 3. The chapter 4 presents the findings, whatever evidences that you have, the process of analysis and the description of findings appears in chapter 4. So be careful. If you are dealing with the statistical data, you should know how to present the tables and the diagrams. If it is qualitative data, you may use different softwares. So the outcome of the analysis you can present, and with the observations that you have had while you conducted the study. You can conclude your chapter with 5 if you presented the discussions and you are drawing the conclusion from the evidences that you have observed or you have tested. So at times you may find the PhD thesis of candidates go more than 7 units, or at times they restrict it with 5 or 6 units. It's better to restrict your chapterization with 5 or 6 units because it is advisable that a PhD thesis or a dissertation which you can restrict with maximum 6 or 7 units. So in thesis writing, where you pay attention to, let me present you some tipping points. The title of the chapter should be precise, and the subtitles, it should go like roots. The content should be appropriately designed that links one to another. Most of the researchers face the problem of aligning figures and tables in the main content. Pay attention to the in-text citations. Use footnotes appropriately. Bibliography and end references. This is another area of interest that you have to pay attention to. Appendix should contain the questionnaire or any miscellaneous information like the evidences that you observed during your visit, copy of your field note that you can present in appendix. Make sure that you do necessary corrections in manuscript and it should be proofread multiple times. When you revise your manuscript, it enriches the value and you will realize that from the initial writing till the final end, how it changed, the content changed. Quickly we will go through the ethical considerations in research. This include if your research is dealing with sensitive areas or study on communities, you may need the permission from the research ethics committee. So make sure that you have all the permissions from your university before you carry out such kind of researches. The consent of the respondent. It is important to collect the consent from the respondent in writing. Before you communicate for such consent, make sure that your research objective is communicated. It is described clearly, and you should mention the confidentiality of the information and voluntary participation of the participant. the data you collect from the participant, that should be kept confidential and used only for your academic purpose. The voluntary participation of the participant is also very important. It is advisable to hide the actual name of the respondent. It is, you might have read in newspapers or in documentaries, they do not reveal the respondent at times. So, if while we do research, it is advisable to use the respondent like R1, R2, R3 like that. The occupation, ethnicity, these also at times cause problems. So, if it is dealing with race or gender or at times occupation, you can show it in appendix in such a way that the identity of the respondent is not revealed. Access to research site. At some points, there might be some restrictions to some places in every country. Make sure that the research site or the organizations that you are going to study, you have necessary permissions. Now, even in India, there are different places which need permits, or some organizations, they do not allow you to conduct the study. So, respect such organizations and the required permission. If you don't get necessary permission, it is better not to proceed with such kind of researches. In data analysis, we use two terms. One is fabrication of data and second is falsification. So, avoid these two things, because if someone else analyze your data, they may identify the mistakes and that can put you in a very bad light. So, be honest to your work, and during data analysis, if you do not get appropriate result, identify what went wrong where designing the scale items or collecting the evidences. Plagiarism is one of the most important things of today. Stealing others' ideas and presenting it in your words, this is something very wrong. So, make sure that your ideas should be genuine and you should not copy a manuscript or even a PhD thesis and present it in your name. In this slide, the three mistakes while writing is presented here. One is using others' words and ideas without giving the credit. Second, use others' exact words without quote marks. Last, paraphrasing, close paraphrasing. So, these are identified as the three mistakes while you write even a small write-up or a manuscript for an article or even your PhD research dissertation. Some tips that you can pay attention to. Regularly update the content that you are working. Dedicate some time for writing every day. Organize and check the content, reorganize the content at least once in a month. Keep different files pertaining to different chapters separately. And identify the proportion of the word limit for each chapter, because a PhD thesis is expected to have 50,000 words. It would come around 200 pages, 150 to 200 pages approximately. So, make sure that you divide the chapters appropriately so that you will not have any problem when you continue with your writings. Some AI tools which you can use is Grammarly, you might have heard about it, Quillbot, many of you might be using Quillbot. For literature review, you can use Litmaps, Connected Papers, SciSpace for writing, Covidence or Ryan. So, being a scholar, it is important that from the very beginning you identify the right literature sources like a Google Scholar, Scopus or Science Direct, etc. Second, go through the manuscript repeatedly. Try to incorporate a new idea as and when you find and correct the mistakes. When you write literature, make sure that it is critical, not just describing, and being selective, and use primary sources as much as possible. Always focus on the purpose of the study and finalize the model framework within 1 year of your research. Discuss your work with the mentors. Show your manuscript whenever you complete to your supervisor. And the supervisor or the guide may take time. So make sure that you prepare your work within the time limit. The supervisor will go through your manuscript and suggest you wherever revisions are required and accordingly make corrections. Learn data analysis process yourself and seek the help of people who are knowing the analysis methods if you are not confident in data analysis. Writing the inference is most important. So what conclusions you draw, it comes from mainly inference. So dear students, we are almost coming to an end of our 8 weeks course of research methodology. Today we discussed writing manuscript or thesis. Whether it is a small project or a PhD thesis, divide the chapters in a uniform manner. Each chapter should have a focus and you might need several revisions before you submit it. Organize your ideas and start writing from the day 1 of your enrollment as a scholar or starting your dissertation work for your undergraduate or postgraduate courses. Frequently meet your supervisor and present the progress that you make. And if corrections are required in your manuscript, you may also use AI tools and check. Wherever you need an external support, you can even seek the mentors from other areas too. And it is not a small job. I found that many of the scholars, they find extreme difficulty when it comes into the thesis writing part. Don't accumulate your work to the last phase of your research, or even it is a PG project. Your work should be slowly going, but it should be steady too. And it should be done within a time-bound manner. Follow the ethical practices and considerations. Because remember, in today's world, whatever project you do, it can go online. There is a website, ProQuest. Your dissertation can be uploaded in ProQuest so that people can read and cite your work. The modern world believes in creating and sharing. So whatever work you do and the outcome of the research, the world should know. So make sure that you dedicate your time and work honestly, and at the end you get a good outcome from your study. I wish you all the best and thank you for your patience. Thank you.